Thanks for tuning in again to Day Stockholm Day News. And the feedback we're getting is people saying they're appreciating the fact that we cover a lot of territory in a relatively short period of time. I like to give you local, national, federal, and then we go around the world internationally. And we try and get you prepared for the next 24 hours and covering the last 24. And some people are saying it just saves them a whole lot of time doom scrolling through all kinds of different news sites. And if there's things that they get here as we do the rapid version, then they can go and look into some of them a little more intensely. And we're going to keep providing from that point of view and trying to give you the items behind the scene. What's going on right now is absolutely amazing in Iran. The uprising continues, unfortunately, for the brave freedom fighters there. Many are being jailed, arrested, some are being killed. And one of the reasons of many that they are rising up, inflation now is running at about 52%. They just can't afford to buy stuff anymore. The effects of the sanctions that the United States and other countries have put on Iran, including their oil, and also finally shutting down the Venezuelan oil that's been sneaking out to Iran to help Iran finance terrorism around the world. All of these things are kicking in. But at the UN, the countries still stay kind of silent in terms of the vicious dictatorship of the Ayatollahs and the Islamic extreme republic there. It is disappointing because, of course, at the UN, countries that tend to be freedom-oriented, market-oriented, maybe even small c conservative, always wind up getting hammered at the UN, and these ridiculous and awful dictatorships get away lightly. It would be good to see Canada speaking up a little more about these type of countries and about the countries in Venezuela, countries like that in South America that tend to go completely haywire, far left-leaning socialist countries that destroy the lives of their people, and yet it gets kind of quiet when it comes opportunity, especially in mainstream media. Check out CBC or CNN or the BBC. Very, very soft on hardline, left-leaning dictatorships. So we're cheering for the people there in Iran. In Canada, those of you who've been watching are not from Canada, the left-leaning Liberal government in Canada is just one seat short of getting a majority. In Canada, in the parliamentary system, if you have a majority, you can push a lot of stuff through, a lot of laws. They're one seat short, and they made a mistake. They tried to, who knows what, they tried to bribe a Conservative MP with, but this particular MC, Scott Anderson, lives pretty close to where I live in British Columbia. He lives in the Vernon constituency there. Somehow the Liberals tried to reach out to him to get him to take a walk, and of course, being the MP that would give the Liberals their majority would be an enviable position. All kinds of goodies could be quietly promised to him. And he just simply said there's no way in hell he's going to do that. That's caused his own constituents to be out, as it were, in the streets, cheering him on, cheering on the fact that MPs, when they get elected, should stick with the party that elected them, just out of respect for their own constituents. So very strong reaction there. Keep an eye on Edmonton, where, if you remember, there was another Conservative MP, a guy by the name of Generu, who a while ago quit the Conservative caucus. But the interesting thing, there was so much of an uproar, he didn't join the Liberals. Matter of fact, he says he's just going to simply resign. Let's see if he's going to resign. That'll be coming up in the next little while, next month or so. Or let's see if the Liberals can bribe him to go Liberal. We're keeping an eye on that. Meanwhile, with all the turmoil going on, the Prime Minister of Canada is making more overtures to China, which is really a questionable decision. Here we are tied at the hip to the United States, have been for all of our existence, basically. It's probably the greatest reason for the prosperity that we do have, regardless of the fact that mainstream media and the cultural institutions in Canada have always hated Americans, but most Canadians don't. And yet, here we go with Prime Minister Carney, because he doesn't like tariffs, and neither do I, as a matter of fact, but trying to play nice with China is going to be pretty questionable, especially considering China is getting more and more desperate and getting more and more aggressive, looking at Taiwan and other countries. So let's see what happens when Prime Minister Carney goes over there to China. At the very least, he should be giving them a stern word about not trying to invade Taiwan, and about all of the spy activity they do in Canada. Let's see, because right now, As you know, and as you've been seeing in the news, with the activity in the U.S., especially relative to South America, that's the ongoing application of what's known as the Monroe Doctrine, which was initially set up almost exactly 200 years ago in the U.S. by James Monroe, the president at the time, and it's been revitalized, all through the last 200 years at different moments. So you have the situation now with Donald Trump really invigorating the Monroe Doctrine, which says that the U.S. will have strong influence in its own hemisphere. That's south of its border and north of its border. That's Canada. It's because it's being so strongly implemented, the Monroe Doctrine, it's kind of cute. It's actually been called now the Donroe Doctrine, Donroe, after Donald, of course. And, Canada just has to be aware of this. We can still be fiercely independent, but also look at what our neighbor is looking for and say other ways we can live within that, still promote our own interests and do it better than running to China, which is very questionable. Well, I'd said a while ago that you're going to see a rise at all levels of government, municipal, state, federal, and provincial, in bringing in third-party, independent, arm's-length auditors to audit not just if the money is being spent on programs, but what exactly are the programs doing that billions and billions of taxpayer dollars are going to. This is even within your own cities, never mind just nationally or internationally. And the latest, we're going to see this continue because the latest audit shows that really springing out of the state of Minnesota. Now on the Medicaid side, the auditing there is showing there could be up to $9 billion of fraud in the Medicaid system in the Somalia-ridden state of Minnesota. And recently, as yesterday, we have the Governor Walz, who looked like a while ago, even up to a year ago, who's always been very supportive of the Somalian community there. It looked like he was going to be running easily for re-election. Now he's decided he's not going to run for re-election because the heat is on and the fraud is just at spectacular levels, but it's spreading to other states. And also, as I predict, you're going to see this type of forensic type of audit. You're going to see that spreading into other countries too, and that's a good thing for taxpayers. Just think in that state alone, $9 billion of Medicaid, what that could have done to help people who were truly ill. You're going to see this happening in Canada, where the pressure is coming, is the billions and billions of dollars that have gone to First Nations groups, First Nations communities across the country desperately in need, whether it's water treatment, water plants, whatever it might be, and so little of it, or a percentage, such a small percentage of it, getting through to the actual First Nations people who need it. So watch for this trend to continue with forensic audits really rising up, people wanting to know what exactly is being bought, and that's going to have an effect on the political structure also. Well, in terms of what's been going on in Minnesota, and it can be a barometer for what's happening in other parts of the U.S. or even Canada, because the mainstream media tries to make it look like everybody hates the fact that illegal immigrants are being tossed out of countries, and mainstream media hates that. They want wide open borders everywhere all the time. So we saw that the Hilton Hotel in that particular state was saying no to allowing the ICE agents, the immigration agents, to stay there overnight, and they were canceling a bunch of the ICE agents' reservations. Well, word got out of that, and surprise, surprise to the mainstream left-leaning media, people were very upset with that, so upset that across the country, Hilton shares actually dropped almost overnight, as people were furious with Hilton taking this stand against federal agents staying there. So Hilton, as an organization, quickly did an investigation, and they found out, as many of their Hilton operations are independently owned, this was an independently owned one. It wasn't a corporate decision by Hilton. Hilton called those boys up in that Hilton hotel, the independent one, and read them the Riot Act and said, you're going to have to change your name if you don't drop this insane policy of not letting federal agents stay there. And they did. They changed their policy. The federal agents are welcome back. But you know what it shows, contrary to the opinion that mainstream media is trying to show, that most people don't like illegal aliens booted out of the country. In fact, they do, and look at the reaction from the street every time that gets tested. So wake up, mainstream media. People are open to immigration, and people are open to other ideas, and people are naturally wanting to be friendly, but not if their neighbors are being illegal and breaking the law. So we see people that are leaving Minnesota because of the insane policies of the Democrat governments there. Interesting, again, if you watch what people are doing, people move with their feet. U-Haul has published their stats for the end of the year. They do stats showing which state had the most bookings of U-Haul trailers into the state where people were moving, and this year it's state of Texas. The lower taxes, the relatively more freedom-oriented approach for citizens all seem to be, and the lower cost of living all seem to be attractive to people. People are voting with their feet and voting with the U-Haul trailers moving to Texas. Bloomberg has reported quite rightly that since October, the Magnificent Seven, and if you hear that term, it's not an old movie that aged people like myself and others are familiar with. We're talking about the big internet companies, the big AI companies. We're talking about Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Tesla, the big boys and girls, had the most extraordinary run since October in history of any grouping of companies on the market, as the AI market continues, and it's only going to continue to expand, if not explode. It's in a bit of a leveling off right now, but it was the longest run in history of a grouping of companies like that. Pretty significant. Watch what happens in the courtrooms today when Nick REINER, people have almost already forgotten, Nick REINER, who killed his parents, murdered them, alleged to have, let's keep it correct here, and Rob Reiner, of course, famous out of Hollywood, and his wife. And everybody's watching because the lawyers are seeing they're going to introduce a plea of insanity. Normally, even juries don't really go for the insanity plea. They don't usually acquit on that particular item. And it's something that legislators across the United States, across Canada, and other jurisdictions should look at. It is becoming evident that it's more and more easy to, if I can use that word, to meet the criteria of insanity, and therefore have a sentence reduced, at least in terms of time served. And more the pressure is for legislation to come in that would suggest that even if you do get a successful insanity plea, it should be even more reason that you should be locked up and not released again, because of the fact that you can become, you can get out and become murderous again. And there's just too many cases where juries with these foolish psychiatrists who say, well, yeah, we know the guy mass murdered a bunch of people, but he probably won't do it again, so let him go. So let's watch today. That's coming up today. Watch the courtroom for what the plea is from Nick REINER's lawyers there. Astronomers have just, there's under one of the major astronomy studies that has just been released, and people are poring over it over the last week, are now saying that galaxies have been aging much faster than we thought, or certain astronomers thought. And it's at a much more rapid speed. And they're adjusting some of their projections by the billions of years. So they might have said, well, that particular galaxy out there is, 80 kabillion years old. And maybe now they're saying, actually, it's way older or way younger, which shows that this supposed fine art of saying how old the universe is always up for grabs. As now it's being said that we've been aging much faster than anybody would have guessed. I could have said that about myself, but it's certainly happening to the galaxies. And looking at the fact of age and time and generations, the present Pope, Leo XIV, just yesterday, this is the closing of the official season of Christmas. It's called Epiphany, and that's recognized in the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Church and in most mainline churches. Closed out the year. This was in the Catholic Church is called a year of Jubilee. These are over 25 years. First time the closeout of this time, the particular time of year, was done by a different pope than opened it, just because of the death of Francis. That's only the second time in history that's happened. But he's also done something very interesting. He has declared the year 2033 to be the next year of Jubilee, even though that's not the official timeline. that would be set out of every 25 years by the Catholic Church. And the reason he's doing that, he's saying because that falls absolutely dead on the 2000th year of the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So already those people who like prophecies and are like predicting are saying, oh, this is going to be a major year. It's a 2000 year mark, which is pretty significant in biblical history. Watch on for 2033. Who knows what's going to happen, folks? We're busy just watching what's happening the next day, and thank you for tuning into that. See you tomorrow.